along with Sam Brown, who is video recording this session. So if there's anything that you want to rewatch later, or you want to pass along to a coworker or a friend or something like that, we do put these videos up. We actually have the last couple of meetups up. That's one of the most requested things about these sessions. If you can't make it last minute, just be able to watch a video of it later. So we would first off, if I can change the slide possibly, really like to thank Track Maven. So Matt Camilli is here, Josh is here. Who else do we have from the team?
Just that's it.
Right. Usually they are all around in their corgi shirts and just like running around the whole event. We'd really like to thank them for just having the space to meet tonight. It's kind of ridiculous in DC where we have all these large government agencies, and yet they can't obviously host most meetups. So sometimes we struggle with getting a spot. Track Maven is always awesome about that stuff. And then food-wise, actually didn't put a slide in. I just paid for it through Twilio. If you need to do anything with text and voice, so for example, you need to add two-factor authentication to your application via SMS, you can do that super easy through Twilio. Plenty of other use cases. Where's Matt Brown? You use it for voice over IP with iOS, that sort of thing. Okay, as I said, video, we have a YouTube channel for that. We also have stickers, so if you want to put a DC continuous integration or DC continuous delivery sticker on your laptop, Grant, I'll get you one. No problem. Sam, do we have them this evening then?
I do.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, we'll grab you one as well. Okay, just put up one. We usually have a whole laundry list of conferences and events. This is just one for. So obviously we're coming up on the end of the year, so we've got one coming up on December 13th. This is the Go continuous delivery. So it's going to be using the Go continuous delivery. It's continuous integration, right? Really,
They call it Go CD.
Yeah, Go CD. It's continuous integration for. It was actually originally by ThoughtWorks, and they have open source. Is anybody using this right now? Okay, cool. So they're having a hackathon out in McLean, and there will be many other events, of course, coming up in 2015 that we'll just kind of keep you apprised of once we have our January meetup. Is there anybody that is currently hiring in here? Or we'll start out with hiring. So people that are hiring, this is an opportunity just to kind of say, hey, I work for X company and we are looking for, yeah, go for it.
So actually this is a thank you and hiring. So I want to thank this group. It's been really great. Actually helped me get a job, so that's really great.
Awesome.
Just all the knowledge I've learned here. But at any rate, the company I'm with now, AgileX, they always have a ton of jobs for CI and DevOps. Always have a ton of jobs. So.
Cool. Yeah, no, I know some people at AgileX. I actually know the first developer who was hired at AgileX, so very awesome to hear that they're good. Are you mostly out in Northern Virginia, or what's the geography behind that?
They have, I don't know, I'm in Chantilly right now.
Okay.
But they have several offices, and they do a lot of contracts, mostly all government contracts, mostly 6 month or longer. A lot of them are short term like that.
Okay, cool. Other things besides AgileX? Yeah.
Yeah, so we're Zap Media, and we're mostly looking for mobile devs. We're also looking for QA. We have some great DevOps people that are actually here. But, we do interactive audio ads. It's very cool stuff. We're basically right across the street.
They know how to throw a sweet launch party. I was at the Zap Media launch party.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, man. At the NPR building in Noma. Yeah, it was great. It was very cool. Other folks in the back? Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I work for a startup company. We're in Sterling. We're called Ostrato. We're a cloud management platform, and we're looking for a Python developer.
Python?
Server side.
Got to be a little more specific than Python. Gotta dive into the frameworks and stuff.
We're not doing much in the way of frameworks. We have a REST API that we're using. Flask. We're using Flask for.
What's that?
We're using Flask.
Are you using Flask RESTful?
Yeah.
Okay, well, Twilio open source that. I have to throw that one in there. Matt?
with TrackMaven, we're hiring like everyone else, looking for Python Django guys if you got them, Angular JS guys if you got them. Not really strong need for DevOps, but if you got some of the other skills and happen to be, good at DevOps, we'll definitely take you as well.
Yeah, that's because Matt handles all things DevOps.
Yeah.
TrackMaven.
I'd like to pass that.
Until they scale past at least 10,000 developers, he will be the only DevOps person there. Matt actually gave a really great talk at Continuous Delivery a few months ago, where he revealed that all of their keys were shared in production, and that was actually a huge security vulnerability.
Been since remedied.
They fixed that recently, actually the next day, I believe.
Yes.
But so we all have to be a little bit careful about what we share with our peers. We all are all about being open and transparent, but there are some things that you may want to keep on the DL until you fix those security vulnerabilities. Anyone else who's, Sean?
Yep, I work for Excel Consulting, which has quite a few alumni in the room here, to include Matt and
Baker and
Sam,
Sam.
yeah. But we're an IT consulting company, we're hiring all kinds of people, but we're definitely looking to increase our DevOps capacity, specifically deploying to AWS as well. So, anybody's interested, come talk to me.
Cool. Other folks? All right. Anyone that is looking to be hired, raise your hand quickly. I know often that is something that people want to just talk to people afterwards about. But if you happen to say, "Hey, I'm kind of looking around,"
Camille, put your hand down.
Job opportunity. It's sort of the opposite of the way it usually is.
All right. So let's take a look at the upcoming calendar. So we're coming up on the end of 2014. Fortunately, with this meetup, we have had many people in the continuous delivery space say, "Hey, I'm working on X, and it would be a great topic." And we're like, "Wow, that sounds fantastic!" Just like Grant tonight, who you'll hear from. So we are actually booked out through May. But we are always looking for speakers. So just to kind of go over this, we have January. There's Appetize.io. In February, we have Cloud Orchestration and Management. Oh, okay. I'm assuming that's someone from your company that's going to be speaking at that one in February. Maybe. Just say yes. Yes.
I'd say jump on it. Yeah.
That's us.
We have someone. Is March ThoughtWorks? Someone from ThoughtWorks?
It's not ThoughtWorks,
Okay.
it's actually L3, the guys from Data Tactics who are hosting the hackathon.
Gotcha.
They're going to talk about Go. It just happened to be a interesting coincidence.
Okay. April we have Appian, and then in May it's actually by ThoughtWorks. But if you want to speak on this topic, what we are looking for is a range of things around culture change. Certainly the tools are important. Often at DevOps DC or DC configuration management, people would just talk purely about Ansible or Chef or Puppet. Often what we're looking for is we use Chef in a larger context and how that pipeline looked. Or there is a specific problem, for example, tonight with databases and how and why you would want to do continuous deployment in that environment. So those are the types of topics that we're looking for, but there's certainly a range of things that can fall into that category. So if you are here tonight and you're working in any sort of operational capacity, where you are working on moving from, for example, 6-month deployment to deployments that are a faster schedule than that, chances are you have some war stories that should be shared with the group. And Sam and I would love to hear from you, and just shoot us either an email or some message through the meetup group about something that you're thinking about speaking of. This is exactly what I just went over. All right, so tonight we are fortunate to have Grant Fritchey in from out of town. He's in from Massachusetts, and he is going to be speaking on something that is probably one of the most requested topics, and it is about how and why also to do database deployments in a database in a continuous delivery environment. So Grant actually has a DBA background, so that's where he's coming from this topic. So it's not just a hey, many of us are just programmers and we want to do continuous deployment. Grant actually has a DBA background, so he's going to be speaking from his experience on this topic. So let's give a warm welcome to Grant. Yeah.
Hey, miracles do that. Cool. All right. Just to start off, my name is Grant Fritchey. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm sorry. I sold my soul to Bill. It's no big deal. It doesn't hurt. You never miss it once it's gone. I've spent 20 some odd years, I don't like outlining how much I'm getting old, working in Microsoft stack. I just have. I've just done tons of stuff. So Microsoft stuff, because that's where the pay has been. And that's all. I don't really care what kind of tools I use, honestly. But they keep paying me, so I keep doing it. Not Microsoft, other people. I am the scary DBA. I'll tell you that story someday. But this is my contact information. Please use it. Get in touch. If you've got questions about any of this stuff, you've got questions about other things. I do a lot of query performance tuning, all kinds of stuff inside of SQL Server. Be willing to help out. So please, please, please get in touch. Let's keep going. Oops. Turning this on makes a big difference. There we go. Right. Deployments. There. That's it. This is how you do it. And we're done. You guys can go home tonight. You've already had the food. It's an early night. No, here's the deal, right? Development has long been working out of source control. Does anybody here not use it? I love asking this question. There's always one person who says, yeah, no, I've never used it. Cool, that's actually different.
It's frightening.
It's horrifying to find people who are like, yeah, why would I do that? Anyway, source control is traditional for development. You put stuff into source control. You may go through some sort of triggering process that puts it into continuous integration. From continuous integration, you're going to go out through QA test, pre-prod, and into production. App, dev, application lifecycle management. Yay, done. Guess what? We don't do that in the database. I don't know any Oracle people that are doing it. I know very few SQL Server people that are doing it. My SQL people don't know what source control is, and it frightens me because they should. I don't know about the Postgres people. They probably do, but I'm not sure. The thing is DBAs don't do it. We don't put stuff in source control. So because we don't have anything in source control, this whole idea of continuous integration, right? I'm not even talking CD. I'm not even talking continuous deployment or continuous delivery. I'm just talking CI is a nightmare for these guys. They don't know what it does. What's more is they don't know what it offers. They don't understand that CI is an opportunity for testing, an opportunity for quality, an opportunity for improving what actually gets out to production. Because the last thing you want to do on God's green earth is for the first time you run a T-SQL script, or SQL, or PL SQL, or anything else, is for it to be running it on your production server. That's a mistake. People are shivering, good. Because that gives me the willies. But I see people do it all the time, or worse yet, yeah, well, you know, we just open up 15 scripts and run them one after the other and everything works. Sometimes. And sometimes it explodes. Or my favorite, had a DBA come up to me, and I was a DBA too, came up to me and said, yo, here's the script that's going to production tonight. Cool, thank you. He goes, run it 5 times. Wait, what? Can you come back here and talk for a second? He says, yeah, just run it 5 times because it's going to fail the first 4, but on the 5th one it works fine. We had a long chat. Very long chat. And the injuries eventually healed, I promise. The thing is that you want to get to this place where you're able to go through a CI process and come out with an artifact, right? What's the artifact? I don't care. NuGet package? Awesome. Those things work great. T-SQL? Cool, that works. PL SQL, whatever. I don't care, but you want to go through CI, test this stuff, come out with an artifact, And then once you've got that artifact, you can walk it through all the other environments. And that's the goal. That's what we're going to aim for. Button was pushed. Come on. The whole idea, though, is to narrow it down into this area. This should just happen. Source control should just be seamless and stupid. It's not something we should be discussing in 2014. Shit. Just not even. So my goals tonight, I want to talk about patterns and practices for automating it. I want to talk about some of the advantages, and I also want to talk about the challenges. The fact is that the challenges are pretty severe. Businesses get really attached to data. Now, you guys are, is everyone in here development background? Ish?
Yep. Ish.
Nobody's a DBA. Or ish.
Ish.
Okay, so anyway, hang on. DevOps straight up, that's what I do. Nobody, okay, that's interesting. Okay. Development straight up, that's what I do. Most people, okay, cool.
Do everything?
Admins, okay. I do IT stuff. Right, okay, cool. All right, I'm talking mainly to the IT guys in the back. They're hiding in the back, we always hide in the back. The funny thing is businesses get really attached to their data. It's just this odd thing. If you could let us deploy, you know how you guys do, deployments on DLLs? You throw the old one away, put the new one in, done. I could do that with databases. And my deployments would be as fast as yours, faster. The funny thing is the business is free when you drop the database and put the new one in and there's no data left. So the main thing that this is all about is finding a way to generate scripts, change scripts, mechanisms that allow you to keep the data and automate the process. And that's, frankly, hard. There's a whole series of things that you're going to try to do to make it happen. So, I am not an advocate for continuous deployment. Period. Sorry?
Same.
I am an advocate for continuous delivery. Huge advocate. And the main thing is that people think these things are the same and they are not. And it just makes me crazy. Continuous delivery is the idea of making sure that you're ready to go to production. Not that you're constantly doing the production deployments. That gets dangerous. That gets unsafe. That can get stupid. Yeah, doing them every 2 weeks, awesome. If you're doing it every 2 weeks, that's great. But you're going to be doing it very incrementally, you're going to be doing it very safely, and probably you're going to have 15 or 20 builds during that 2 weeks that could have gone to production safely. If you're every 2 weeks going, yeah, cross your fingers, hit the button, it should be good, that's not continuous delivery, and that's certainly not continuous deployment, because I guarantee occasionally it won't be continuous. So the whole idea is you want to get to this where it's production ready all the time. It says recap because this is part of a bigger 4-hour presentation, so ignore this few words on the screen. You probably have some kind of development environment, right? Works on my machine, traditional stuff. Probably you've got test, at least, if not QA, financial testing, load testing, performance testing. Couple of others, integration testing, all that fun stuff. And then in theory, you've got a production server. Probably. Usually the joke I tell in DBAs is like, have you checked lately? But you want to go through continuous integration because that moves you out of development, moves you into test. You want to go to continuous delivery up to production, and then you want to have an approval gate. Now, here's the fun thing about approval gate. Talk to DBAs, and what do they say? Yeah, cool. Let me see your script, and I'm going to go through a line-by-line review of that, and I should have it back to you sometime in 3 or 4 weeks. What? No, that ain't happen. And as a DBA, I understand what they're doing. What they're doing is saying, look, at 3 a.m., this goes off in my pocket, right? It doesn't, well, not my pocket, it goes off in the other room. I had a Dropkick Murphy song because it woke me up. And then I started hating the Dropkick Murphy, so I switched. It's horrible. Anyway, I get woken up at 3 a.m. by that stupid phone. So I want to make sure what goes into production is safe. So I want an approval gate, and I'm going to sit down and review what you're doing. That's just foolish, because it slows everything down. The whole idea of this is you want to speed things up. You want to move it quickly. So the approval gate should not be a review. The approval gate should be that you've gone through a series of known states and known tests so that you can deliver a known process. That is your approval gate. Yes, this has gone through every single environment. We've done a full suite of tests against it, the same suite that we did on the last successful release and the 15 before it. That's your approval gate. And then once you get an approval gate going like that, you can look to continuous deployment. I am not a fan. You know, DBA means paranoid control freak, not database administrator, right? We really are. We are paranoid control freaks, and this scares me. However, if you do build this out and you've got guts, I was going to use a different word, but family audience, you can go all the way to production with it if you want to. I'm not an advocate, but I like to mention it. So the 4 key stages, how you're going to get there. One, if you've got to go to source control. So the databases have to go there. I mean, everyone in here was laughing about not having application code in source control, but how many of you have your database code already in source control?
Now, when you say
Half
that,
the room.
are you talking about your schema, or are you talking about?
Everything.
Okay.
Triggers, user, security stuff, the whole 9 yards. Yes?
Just great.
Oh, you're raising your hand. You've raised it twice. You're very excited. I've got my database in source control.
No, he gets credit.
He gets credit for doing that? Oh, awesome. That's good. So about half the room has done it. That's great. I mean, because in this environment, I would expect half the room to already have gone on board with that. The other half of the room, guys, please. That is all guys. Wow. You should work on it. Anyway. It's all guys. You've got to get the stuff into source control. That has to happen first. Nothing else is going to work from here. You can't do application code this way if you don't put it in source control first. You've got to have a known state you're deploying from, whether it's a known branch, a known label, a known whatever, right? It has to come from a known state in order to start doing these other things. Then you build out CI. Now, most of the time when I'm talking about to DBA teams, I'm like, okay, look, all the rest of the stuff, nice to have. Be sweet, it'll be great. Someday you'll get there. Start with this. And they're like, well, what am I going to do? Easy. Make it so it builds the empty database automatically. What's that prove? Proves that all your T-SQL is good. Right? Proves all your SQL works. Your basic scripts are functional. That's your first test. You win. You've just set up continuous integration and you've set up a test. Now, add another test. Add another test. Add another test. And continue to build on the tests in the CI environment, and then you've got automated testing going. Pretty easy. And then you start doing automated deployments from there, because if you're able to deploy it to here in an automated fashion, you're able to run tests against it, you should be able to generate an artifact out of that, NuGet package again, SQL, whatever it is, and then off you go. Any questions so far? By the way, make this interactive. Throw things, scream, yell.
I have one question. Well,
Sure.
When you talk about, can you give an example of the type of test you're talking about? Because, most databases usually have some amount of integrity built into their design.
Let's hope.
Hopefully triggers are doing some of that. So, like, what would the test be testing for?
Well, it's going to be different than what I don't recommend, and because I did this, I tried, it was horrible. I did test-driven development for a database, and I built a unit test for every table. I built a unit test for every store procedure. I built a unit test for every object in the database. So you made a change, there was a unit test for it. One, I was an insane individual when I got done, because building those tests out were crazy. Two, most of those tests never failed after the first time. Why? Because most of the objects are never touched, most everything's never changed, and most of the tests were not adequate for what they really needed to do. So what test am I suggesting? One, it kind of depends. Hey, look, I'm a DBA. It depends. First answer. Mainly, you're going to be looking at, did I drop tables? Do I have everything intact? Did I drop rows? Do I have all, do I have all the data I expected to get? And a lot of the tests you're going to build are actually going to be custom. We've got a change coming in that's splitting a table into 2 new tables. Okay, I've got to write a test to validate that that worked. And it's going to be a very specific test for that process. I would not recommend going test-driven development where you build something for everything. That's nuts. Also, on the other hand, I know a lot of app dev guys who are like saying, well, wait a minute, I stub out my database tests. You're not expecting me to write unit tests directly to the database, are you? I'm like, well, one, why not? If I've got everything set up and automated with you, couldn't you just do it that way? Could. I'm not saying you should, but you could. But otherwise, no, don't do that. However, if there are some specific ones, man, if this fails, it's bad. Hey, let's make sure we put a test for that. And so it's more of that kind of thing. It's very custom, very specific. I don't have a, yay, see, look, we fixed it. I don't have a specific set, but it's very, I would say it's very narrow and focused on the destructive areas. And there was another question up here?
Yeah, you keep mentioning NuGet packages. I've just never heard of that. What is that?
Basically XML, zipped up. It's a Microsoft thing. It works with Git, GitHub, but it's spelled G-E-T instead of G-I-T. Don't ask me why. I don't understand Microsoft half the time.
I had a question on
Sure.
branching, but kind of forgot.
Okay.
Do you describe actual branching in your database source control?
Okay.
And do you split the two?
All right.
Application versus-
Branching in databases is really, really fun.
If you say so.
It's a nightmare. Okay. The one thing that I found in branching is that if I can create multiple databases, I will. So if you've got 3 branches, we've got 3 databases. You've got 16 branches, we've got 16 databases. At least till we get to production, and hopefully we don't have 16 branches in production, because that would be problematic for everybody.
And managing versioning as well.
Versioning, I don't sweat it so.
Who runs first and all that stuff? When you
Data.
merge?
Oh, databases always. Why? Because we're the most important. So I'm a DBA, can't help it. That's supposed to be a joke. Everyone laughs at that when I'm not talking to developers. How do you mean, who comes first?
Well, branched and now merge back in. Whose version runs first and how do you control that?
Well, how do you do it in app dev? Same answer, right? It's the same answer. So you're going to do it the same way. All right, so like I said, everything goes into source control, including your tests. Commit early, commit often, and please find the tools, right? I am a Microsoft guy. I'm sorry. Again, I apologize again. So I know a lot of Microsoft tools, and I know a lot of open source tools, but they're open source tools for Microsoft stuff. If you're doing other things, I might not be able to help you out. But there's tools out there that will put your databases into source control. Find them, buy them, borrow them, steal them, whatever you have to do. But put your database in source control because and use tools to do it, because if it's all script-based weirdness, people won't do it. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm lazy, right? And I want to automate everything. I want it to be push button. I want it to be pretty. I want it to be simple, and I don't want to have to sit and write code for everything that I do. Right? I like writing code, I do, and I will write code. I love PowerShell, but I don't do it for everything. Train your people and then build as often as you possibly can, especially in a CI environment. I'll get to CI in a minute. Yeah, CI. Look at that. First off, you do have to have a code repository. You've got to put it in source control. Right? This has to happen first, then you go to CI. From there, you can start doing build automation. The whole idea is CI, from a database standpoint, this is news to everyone. That you get functional testing, you get delivery testing, and you get artifact generation. DBAs don't know this. They don't. So this is something we're trying to educate them all on. It's simple stuff to you guys, but to them, this is rocket science. This is the hard part. The reason, here's my talk on CI. I have 2 approaches for the database. I already mentioned one, the complete replacement. Empty database, I don't care what's in it. Drop it, recreate it. Do this for every code check-in, or once every 5 minutes, or 15 times a day or something. But it just validates the T-SQL, validates the stuff that's supposed to be there, make sure all the elements go together in the right order. It's a simple, stupid test, but it's vital because that's the first one that's going to fail. You get that in place, and so it runs continuously, all the time. You don't have to sweat it. Second test is harder. Second test is an incremental. And it's gonna take more time too, because I want to put data in there. Now, if you're dealing with, anybody here dealing with multi-terabyte systems? No? Cool. Then life's easier for you. Multi-terabyte systems, we're not gonna be able to, whoop, didn't do it. That was weird. Anyway, multi-terabyte systems, you're not going to be able to copy the production database. But non-multi-terabyte systems, you probably can. A clean copy. Want a quick story about clean databases? I came out of development, right? And so I'm very much a support. As I'm a DBA, it means I'm a jerk. I really am. I have no problem being a jerk. I will crush you like a bug. However, I like developers. And so I try to support developers as much as I possibly can. And so I very much believed in giving developers copies of production. Oh, you need a copy of production? I understand why, it's cool. Here's a copy of production. And we had a developer come up and say, hey, I need a copy of production. I said, okay, here's your copy of production. And off he went. And he was developing code for the email system. And I gave him production. Unclean, dirty production. I had a complete copy of production with all the email in it. Said developer had a sense of humor and liked pictures of an adult-themed variety that he then sent to our entire customer list. Yeah, that was a long meeting, right? How can we prevent this from ever happening again? So clean data, right? We're going to clean the data before we give to
Can you stay on that story for a little bit?
I didn't get fired and he didn't get fired, and that's kind of amazing. The two of us probably should have been fired, but we didn't.
He didn't get fired?
He did not get fired. Yeah. It was a very big company. They don't fire people easily. That's all I will say about that. But, yes?
As a footnote to that story,
Oh no.
in development, we use a company called mailtrap.io.
Right.
They function as an SMTP glue trap.
Oh, cool.
So all our email gets sent out and doesn't go anywhere.
Wish I'd known about that
And it's free.
12 years ago.
It's free up to a point.
Cool. So there's a glue trap that you could use. What's it called again?
Mailtrap.io.
Mailtrap.io. Excellent. I would definitely recommend that, based on my own story. Anyway, what I do want to do is in the CI process, if I can, once a day, a couple of times a week, once a week, as frequently as possible, probably no more than twice a day, I want to get a copy of production down, a clean copy, and then I want to run the CI build against that in an automated fashion, and I want to generate a script. I want that script to be tested against my production data. I want to run a full suite of tests based on the stuff that we've determined are problematic, and I want to do that in automated fashion 2 times a day, once a week, as often as I can. Because that one is going to be the one that gives me the information I need to know. Hey, the build that we did, build 4.3.3.2 works. Awesome. Now I know. So I've got that one marked, I've got that one labeled, right? And we do 15 dev builds, cool. And I know that they all work, great. And finally one of them goes to QA. But I've got to be able to do that in an automated fashion. So I do both of these. Is everybody okay with this? And understand why? Yes.
Okay, so come hell or high water, I worked with databases over 2 terabytes.
Right.
And
can't.
we had all kinds of PII in there and all kinds of stuff. And, so all that had to be de-identified, and come hell or high water.
Yes.
Developers were never going to get a copy of that or deploy production.
Right, and if you're talking about larger scale databases, and I say multi-terabyte, but you get up above 700 or 800 gigs, and it gets very difficult. And the rules change. I can't do it then. Then what I have to do is I have to get test data, which is not the same, and not as good.
How do you normally automate that? I mean, are you working with the sysadmin who's going to automatically put in mass data, or?
Yeah, well, you're going one of 2 ways. If you're pulling down from production, you mask the data before anyone gets a hold of it, and then use that. If you're going the other way, you're going to have to look at your data distribution of the production data. There's on average 15 rows in this table for every row in this table, that kind of thing, and then build up your data set. by hand. There are some tools out there that automate it, several, some for Oracle I know, several for SQL Server I know,
As I
but
say,
they're all a little sketchy.
Newer versions of Oracle, I think, can automatically, based on the user, de-identify information and encrypt it in real time and things.
Yeah, the encryption stuff works real well. The de-identify stuff doesn't work very well at all.
Yeah, never tried.
I wouldn't trust it. The encryption stuff's awesome, but if you're still talking about that large scale stuff, encrypted or not, you're not going to move it down to the development area. You just can't, because it's too big. Any other questions in this? Cool.
Do move.
Let's make sure this works.
Again,
Again, new laptop. Yes, go ahead.
so in especially large databases, to what degree can you take advantage of maybe some of the underlying storage or file system capability like snapshot and things like that to freeze frame things, make changes, make sure it works okay, if not roll it back, try again, that kind of stuff, right?
I'll talk about that later. I promise. It's in the slides. It's a great question. Everybody know the difference between a good question and a great question? A good question, my answer is I don't know. Great questions in the next slide. We'll be coming on that. It's not the next slide, but it's in the deck. We'll be there. All right, so this is Team City. Anybody already using Team City? Most of the room? Cool.
Sorry.
Cruise control sucks. Sorry, I had to say it. Jenkins, there's others ones that they're all good. Cruise control's not that bad. For anybody who loves it, I apologize. It's actually a good tool. It's better than what I started with. 10 years ago when I started doing this, we built it all by hand. There were no tools, and we did all this by hand, and it sucked. Right? I don't recommend that, ever, doing that way.
Circle CI has been my favorite for a while now.
Pardon?
Circle CI just came on the board and they've been my favorite for a while now.
Oh, cool. I haven't tried them out yet.
They're in the cloud, like they do a lot of stuff now, even with Docker. It's beautiful. And it's really cheap too. It's like
Circle
$10 a
CI.
month.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I'll check that one out. So anyway, let's go over here. This is a database. Sorry, I apologize for the Microsoft stuff.
Ugh.
Yeah, I know. It'll be okay. I'm just going to do really simple demos. This is nothing complex. I don't want to bore the heck out of anybody. So I've got a store procedure. I'm taking a column out of the store procedure. Woo. All right, so that executes. Now I've got a tool for getting it into my source control system. Let's make sure I'm on the right database. So it identifies my change. I'm actually going to put a comment in, unlike most of you guys.
It's solid 3 years since I've seen
What was that?
It's been like a solid 3 years since I've seen Visual Studio.
This is a Visual Studio. This
Oh,
is
that-
SQL Server Management Studio. Yeah.
Looks really like Visual Studio.
It looks like 1999 Visual Studio.
Yeah.
Because it is. Microsoft hates us that much.
This is like where you can explore all the rows and tables and everything. And,
Yeah. Don't worry about it. We're not going to spend any time here. That's all the time we're spending here. I made a change in my database. This is my development database. I've got my development database checked into source control. Yeehaw, right? That's all we did. That's all we're doing. Now we'll leave this stuff behind. In the meantime, cruise control is already running. Because I've got this thing set up so that it captures every time I check in, it triggers off the database calls. Right out of source control. I'm going to show you what's going on. It's going to succeed. I don't have to worry about that. Thank God, because I was doing it all day long.
So what were you committing? I mean, what was detecting the change there?
I just took one column out. I took a column in the store procedure. I commented it out, recompiled the store procedure.
Yeah.
So that store procedure now has one less column in it,
Yeah.
and I checked that into source control.
Okay, so you were just checking in the actual.
Yeah, I made the change, ran it against my database first, and then checked it into source control. That's it. So I do also want to apologize. I should apologize about this up front, but we were going to do one presentation, and having a chat, we decided to do this one instead. And unfortunately on this one, part of my demo does show Redgate tools, and I'm not trying to be a Redgate salesman in this, at all. It's just they're there, and I want to be upfront about it and just talk about that, and then we're going to ignore that from now on. It's one little bit of magic, and that's all I want to say. The little bit of magic we have is that we can pull stuff out of source control, compare it to the other database, and then generate the differences, put them into a T-SQL script or a NuGet package, and then let you do stuff with it. That's all I'm saying. And I'll never mention the words Redgate again.
But that's what that commit was, that was.
No, that
using your
commit,
tool?
no, that was also using our tool, but that was just getting into source control. That's a trivial task. Microsoft Visual Studio's got I know nobody's in here is using Visual Studio, but Visual Studio has an awesome way to get databases into source control that works really well. There's several tools for Oracle. The tools are out there, just people don't use them. But that's the easy bit. Getting into source control is simple. So what we're doing is we pull the stuff, we pull it out of source control and do a build, and then I deploy that stuff into a package, and then I run a series of unit tests that I've got. Now the unit tests are all based off of an open source, open source. T-SQL T is a T-SQL SQL Server open source testing tool. And so I've got a whole bunch of tests, including, I am bouncing back to SQL Server again. I apologize. I've got a whole series of tools, a little hard to see. I've got a whole series of tests that I got from another, T-SQL T. There are open source people putting tests out there. So I can go and get tests that do all kinds of things like look for missing foreign keys, look for orphan users, look at certain operational stuff within my database and make some identifications on there. So that's all open source already available for me. And so I've got those automated into the thing and they're run as part of my source control deployment. Back out of here again. Then we don't come back here again. I promise really for sure this time.
You always have security testing too?
Do I always have security testing?
Security testing too?
Yes. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I put in as much testing as I can to validate the stuff to make sure that things don't change. Yeah. Object ownership, all those kinds of things. Yeah, we do tests for all that. It's just a big part of what you do. And then finally, I called up octo.exe to do an Octopus release deployment. Anybody here using Octopus already? You, buddy. Oh, one guy's shaking his head going, yeah, I use Octopus, it's great. Because it really, really is.
What is it?
But it's .NET only, right?
Oh,
That's where we use it. I've never used it for any other.
It might be. Hang on, we'll check.
Yeah, I think it's only.
It might be. That might be why no one here is using it. Who in here is anybody here doing .NET? A couple people. Okay, let me ask you another question. Is anybody here working for like large-scale enterprise people?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the same guys raising their hands that do the .NET. See, the reason is we work for big companies. You know what big companies use? Microsoft. Is it that we love Microsoft? No, it's our paycheck, right? No love there. It's just it's a paycheck, and I get paid, and I keep going. So it's, well, I'm gonna lie to you. Okay, so we've now gone through CI. CI has generated an artifact. I talked about artifact repository. What's the artifact repository? Source control. Or it could be folders, whatever, but I usually check stuff back into source control. The whole idea is that continuous integration, it's the do the work, put it into source control, get a build, and then get tests out of it. And this is what really matters. But all of that is aimed at getting that deployment package. Oh, my arrows are messed up. You want to do testing with this. You want to do staging and or user acceptance testing and or pre-production testing with this. And then you want to take that same thing and go to production. If anything fails, you go back to development. If you have to change anything, you go back to development. Development goes through the CI process. The CI process does a series of tests. Those series of tests validates this package. Then that package is used to go from version 1 to version 2 in QA, from version 1 to version 2 in staging, from version 1 to version 2 in production. Same package over and over and over again. Why? Because if you're not testing that package, then you're running it for the first time in production. And that is the one thing we want to avoid. Because we have to protect the production data. And if we don't have the production data validated prior to getting to production, we're going to fail.
What's immune system? Is it mutable
Just means that,
machines or?
no, just it's a phrase for the tests that you're putting in place.
Okay.
Nothing else. It also is talking about, whoa, look at that, it bounces off and goes over that way. This immune system is also talking about the validating for drift. Because you are assuming everything's 1.0 to 2.0, 1.0 to 2.0. But hey, guess what? 3 a.m., if the server had a problem, I might make a change to fix it. Completely out of band. Because at 3 a.m., I don't care. I've got a production out, I'm going to make whatever change I have to make production come back online, period. Now, what should happen? At 8 a.m., I get up early and groggy and immediately do that change back into dev and it goes back to the same process again. That's what should happen. Is that always going to happen? No. Occasionally things drift. And if you got drift, you want to check for it.
So you talked about using your, back on the deployment package being the same throughout the environments, which
Right.
is very much like, in development, it's the binaries.
Right, exactly.
But, where are you keeping your environmental things, your user information that's different between the different environments?
Now see, that's a fun one.
Yeah.
How are you doing the user environments that are different between the different environments? Generally, what I try to do is have a pre-deployment script that recognizes which environment we're in. And then that same pre-deployment script goes through all the environments. And then if you're in staging, it says, okay, well, staging doesn't look like QA, but it looks like production, except we've got to have another, there has to be a couple of open access points for some testing that we're not going to run production. So that kind of stuff.
Okay.
That's how I've done it.
And that pre-production script is also version controlled and somehow
Yes,
being
sir.
put out. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and just plugged in as part of everything you do within whichever packages you're putting together and how you're putting your packages together, whether using. Remind me again, Circle CI.
Circle CI, yeah.
Yeah, I remember it. Cool. I want to look it up. It sounds cool. Circle CI. All right. Whether you're using Circle CI or something else, you're going to set that up that way. All right. Repository. Heck with the repository. So, as close as possible. You need to have a staging environment as close as possible. Again, I recognize multi-terabyte systems not possible. Some of the secure systems, anybody here doing healthcare? Healthcare is nightmarish. Especially since there's some of the new healthcare laws. Have you seen it? You guys may not have seen this. As a DBA, I've seen this. I can be prosecuted. Individually. Not my company. My company can be prosecuted too. I, as the DBA, if I leak data, if I was to take a production database and give it to you, I can get prosecuted.
Don't you want to just hire a lawyer?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know anyone here who's in government, but man, I would like to slap people that set that up, because that's not cool. However, I'm going to do things as close as I can to production, so I will make stuff, I will make copies of it, I will clean that data, I will get it out there, but I've got to get it as close as I can. You can use differential tools. There's a whole series of them out there. Some are open source, some aren't. Microsoft supplies some. Oracle supplies one, I've seen. Or you can use backup and restore if the database is small enough. But you've got to be able to get it over there in order to make sure that your pre-production is as close to production as possible, because that's your last gasp test. Right, we're doing QA and staging and CI and all this other stuff, cool, but that pre-production, that last one, that's your last time that you can get that test in. So we're ready to go, right? Maybe not. We talked about drift before. Last minute hot fixes, emergency 3 a.m. fixes. All kinds of stuff can leak in. So you also want to build in tests that will validate that your stuff looks the same. Now we're ready. Maybe not. We need to plan for things to go wrong. We need a rollback and recovery strategy. Can't just go. we have to assume things can go south. So, choices, backups. Number one, that should just be there. I know you guys aren't DBAs. Still, somebody should be doing the backups. And if I do IT stuff, remember we asked that question, you need to make sure you've got database backup set up. It has to be part of your process. The database backups have to be there. However, snapshots are wicked cool. Some of the large-scale SAN systems have transactionally aware snapshots, meaning they can make snapshots that will not cause your databases to corrupt, that you can use for database recovery. And you can use for database copying. And cloning. So if you want to copy stuff down, you can do that. There's also this really cool trick with virtual shadow copy. I'm getting that word phrase right. That it's basically what you do with VM snapshots. You can actually do it with files, and you can make a copy of a database, not using any kind of internal snapshot mechanisms. It actually works. It's kind of slick. But you can do snapshots from your VM. Most of the VM vendors that I'm aware of, except for was it Box or whatever, the one from Oracle? VirtualBox. That one stinks.
Yeah.
It's free. And functionally, it's actually really good. But from a I'm a database administrator, freaked out, paranoid control freak, it's not very good because doesn't allow me for transactionally aware snapshots. It does not do that. So that one will fail. The other ones are pretty good about it. You can do rollback scripts. I think you're insane if you do. I have never used a rollback script. I've built them. I've built gigantic, massive rollback scripts and then never used them. Or, worse yet, tried to use them and had them fail. Why? Because how many times do you test the rollback script? Never.
Not as often as you test DR. Right?
Yeah, not as often as you test DR, true. The thing I found is that rollback scripts don't work for one of two reasons. One, your deployment burned the house down. So you go to your backup or your snapshot. You don't go to a rollback script. It's like, oh my God, everything's on fire. Cool. Kill it, do the restore, or undo the snapshot so that we've got everything back to where it was. We're good. That's one of the two kinds of failures that I see. The other kind of failure I see is that it goes in, you test, everything looks good, we're in production. Awesome. We win. Yay, high five, go to the party. Woo! A week later, someone notices, you know, this is messed up and it's putting in the wrong data here. But the other 75 changes that we made that are part of your rollback script, we can't touch any of those. We just want to roll back this piece. Well, I can't just roll back that piece because all the data around it's already related and there's foreign key constraints, and guess what? We can't do it. So what we're going to do instead is roll forward scripts, which is basically take advantage of the fact that we're building this whole mechanism for doing lots and lots of fast deployments, and just do another fast deployment to fix the thing that we messed up. Put a branch in, generate the stuff, and on we go out the door. Or, this one I use rarely, mainly with data warehouse or data mart type stuff. You do AB or blue-green deployments. You literally get 2 copies of everything, deploy everything to this copy, and then swap them out. Pardon? It's just rare because if you're in a transaction environment, online transactions, all the stuff going on, real time, synchronizing those two is a nightmare, way beyond a nightmare. You frequently can't do it. So usually it's backup snapshots and roll forward scripts are my 3 main tools.
You run the danger of split brain if you're not careful with that.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's fun. When suddenly it's maintaining 2 different data sets 2 different ways. And then the boss starts screaming. All right. Let's get back over here. So while this thing built, and it built me an Octopus release thing, let's go to Octopus. Not there. Not yet. Okay, so Octopus is really simple. Running on the left side of your screen, projects. Projects, sub-projects, go crazy, have fun. Running across the right, across the top of your screen, environments. We've got dev integration, testing, staging, and production. And dev integration is not my CI environment. It's a different monster. Something I ran into at another company is we had multiple teams of development going on at the same time, CI worked great. I mean, we set up CI, it was awesome. But then we had to have a second set of development integration testing to ensure that everybody wasn't stepping on each other's toes. And so that we would do a QA build and it would fail. And we'd take the QA team offline for 3-5 days and they'd be screaming and yelling. It was horrible. So we would do this dev integration build, and if that failed, cool. We haven't hurt the QA team. The dev teams can go back and fix the things they need to fix. So I've just gotten in the habit of suggesting that. Testing, staging, production. So what if we wanted to go into this project, take a look at the processes. So what I'm doing is pretty simple. I'm running PowerShell. I'm doing a mirror in production. So what I'm doing is taking my production server and doing, remember I talked about differential tools? I'm running a differential tool between my staging and my production to make staging look like production. It's already been a copy of production. I could do this with a backup and restore. I could do it with snapshots. I could do it with cloning. There's a whole series of ways I could do it. I'm just using the differential tool. Specifically, I'm saying only run this in staging and only run it on a server that has a role of DB server, because you can set up multiple roles for your servers. I'm focused on databases, so all these are all DB servers. I'm going to create a database deployment, which consists of 2 steps. First, I get the NuGet package. Again, this could be T-SQL, could be something else. But I'm getting the NuGet package out of my source control system from the TeamCity NuGet feed. Because TeamCity creates the NuGet package as it on the fly. Then, I am using a PowerShell script that compares what's in the NuGet package with what's in my copy of production and generates a differential script. So it finds the objects that are different and generates a script off that. And then that does that for every dev integration, testing, and staging. And then it will deploy the database. So that's what happens. I've got a whole series of variables so I can control exactly how that works. I can even get into security settings here. All I've got it doing right now is saying there's a database variable and I've got 4 different names, each keyed to a different environment. In other words, I'm cheating. This is all running on one machine, but I'm simulating 4 different environments on the one machine. But you've got the database path, and then you've got the Octopus variables, my login, my imaginative password, and no, that's not production, so you guys can't hack me.
It's Lovecraft in production.
Yeah, you bet. And if we take a look at the releases, I'm playing with the numbers, I'm just fooling around. I'm taking the latest build number out of source control and the latest build number out of TeamCity and combining them to create a version number. So that's why they're going up to in funky steps. It's not normal. Don't do this at home, kids. But you'll notice, 7:34 p.m. This is the build that we did earlier tonight. So I've already done my build here. Let's open this up. Oops. Let's open this up. And let's deploy this. And we'll deploy it to dev integration. Click on deploy release. And yeah, you're thinking, wait a minute, what happened to automating? 1, this is all automatable. You can call all this through a command line. 2, I got to demo something. So you'll notice it's acquiring the packages that we said it was going to acquire, and then it's going to do create a deployment, and then it's going to deploy the database. It takes it a minute, because it's running on a local VM, it's not all that fast. I've tried doing this on VMs on Azure and on Amazon Web Services, and it's just too sketchy when doing demos in front of people.
So you could have triggered this though as soon as TeamCity successfully produced the artifact?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Because the same way I used TeamCity to make the command that generated the release here.
Yeah.
I could have had TeamCity also to do the first deployment. So like say deployed. So wait, hey, we've got a successful passed all the tests build. Cool. Make a deployment. Go to dev integration. Boy, it's really going slow tonight. So it's already generated HTML. It's going to show all the changes. So I've got a report that I can send to my boss.
Can you show us what that looks like?
Sure.
HTML.
Come on. Whoops. Wrong zoom. There we go. Correct zoom. 38 identical objects, one different. And the one difference? Da, da, da. Oh, it's a table. That's not right. Oh well, we'll take it. There's a difference. I'm happy. And the difference is showing the object that was different. So that's not the change I would have expected to see, but whatever. Not the right one. Not the right one. There it is. Okay, so it's finished. It also spat out a SQL script that we can open up and take a look at. Running security scan. Microsoft, come on. New laptop. I have not installed Chrome yet. Got me some slack. And it's just the changes that we made, which was modifying a clustered, not clustered index is the change that it captured this time. You must have missed that one other check in there. Whoops. That's what I meant to do. So that's cool and all, but, oh, and then, by the way, go back to here, you'll then see that now the dev integration is different than the other ones because it's got the new deployment. But let's go back to there to the releases. Just want to show you a couple more. If I was to deploy this release to staging, I'm going to skip QA, which is bad, I know, but you know, you'll forgive me because it's a demo. You'll notice that what it's doing now is for this, instead of just running the, you know, generate the package, you know, I mean, get the package, generate the script, run the script, it's now doing the mirror production, and then acquiring the package, doing the other three. So it's gonna go through all those. I'll have to wait for a second for it to finish because I don't want to show you the last one. How about that local sports team? All right, bad joke.
Not great.
No, the Pats lost this last weekend, so. 2 weeks ago I was at the game, and we were expecting a loss, and they beat the snot out of them. It was great. That was fun. Come on. So it generates the changes thing again. It's all doing the same steps again. The only additional thing was the mirror to production.
Wait.
Sure.
Hopefully a quick question. So in the development world where we want to go off a main line and have no branching, we often use feature toggles to turn off and on new features in different environments. How do you support that on the database side?
When I've tried doing that from the database standpoint, I can do it somewhat if I'm using stored procedures.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I can do that. If I'm not using stored procedures, I just deploy everything. And you know, oh yeah, well, this is a new table. Cool, I've got it. When you're ready for it, it's there.
Right, so I think that's generally called non-breaking changes to the database, right?
Yes.
So that's the strategy.
Yes, if it's a non-breaking change. If it's a breaking change means it's going to cause data loss or data modification. Then I either can't deploy those until you're ready, which means branching,
Right.
or, well, I can't deploy them until you're ready.
And typically for like doing feature stuff like that, like we've talked about, you know, how we would go about that in the future, and even on like a user level too. And I think the idea was, you know, you bring the database fully up to speed, or create some sort of follow database. But I think it's way easier to just bring everything up to speed, and then on the front end, kind of control turning features on or off, rather than the database side of things.
I agree. It's just, I mean, you'll notice all this hedging, all this dancing around I've been doing all night long on little bits and pieces. Databases are hard, right? I mean, it's part of the resistance you'll get from data pros the guys who all they do is data to this type of thing, is because databases are hard. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't do all this stuff on databases, and it doesn't mean you can't do all this stuff on databases. I've done it successfully, multiple times with multiple teams. I've also failed a few times. Scar tissue is pretty cool. But you can do it. It's just not easy, and you've got to be able to, you've got to have all those mechanisms for hedging your bet. Now let's just do one more deployment. This one will be quick, because I'm going to go to production, and I just want you to see the difference. Production is only doing the deployment. So it's taking the stuff that's been successfully deployed to staging, successfully tested, successfully validated. It's completely good. We know it's good. We know it's not going to break anything. And it did the deployment, and it happened like this. It's the whole goal is to get to that point. And we've got that ability to generate the T-SQL. We've got the ability to generate the reports. So we're at no point are we doing stuff to production that we don't know what it is. And at no point can we not go back and say, what changes did you make? And identify them directly, right through here. Easy. And that's the whole goal. I mean, that's all I'm aiming at. Does that make sense? Everybody okay with that? Great. Okay, cool. So again, I want to get to here. I want to get to this approval gate. But I just want that approval gate to be that I know that I've gone through all my testing. Not that I'm looking at every single line of code. I don't want to. I don't have time. I can't. You guys can't wait for me to do that. We need to be able to deploy this stuff automatically over and over again. So we've got to be able to go through a continuous delivery process, which means getting it ready for production on a repeated basis. Documents, sources, The Goal's a great book. Continuous Delivery by Jess Humble is an awesome book. You guys probably already know him. Who here has not read The Phoenix Project? Most of the room. Cool. All right. So I get to proselytize. This is awesome. The Phoenix Project is a novel about IT. And yeah, if you felt just a little bit of stuff coming from the back of your throat, that's normal, and that's okay. The thing to remember is that this is a horrible novel. As a novel, it's really badly written. The characters are cardboard cutouts, except they are cardboard cutouts of everybody I've ever worked with. It's like, I know that guy. I worked with that manager. I've worked with that developer. I know these people. I mean, it's horrific. I read it in a day. And also there's a character in it that might as well be called Yoda. He's not 3 foot tall and green or talking weird language, but he kind of floats in, spews some stuff, and then floats back out again. It's weird. Has everybody read it? Am I wrong?
Yeah. That's all
It's
right.
really weird.
Totally Yoda, right? I mean, might as well have been called that, but whatever. It's a bad novel, but it's an awesome parable about continuous delivery, about DevOps, and application lifecycle management. It's absolutely worth the read. Get everybody you know to get a copy and read it. Absolutely. It'll take a day. I promise. It's a fast read. Plus, once you get into it, you're going, yeah, I know this. Seriously, I loved it. But it's really a horrible book. And there's some other stuff. Redgate's got a whole bunch of stuff going on. And, oops, not supposed to see that. Take that off. Cut that out of the thing. And those are the English sources. Any other questions on anything we've gone over? Rough overview, but that's how I'm doing it now. Not how I started.
So you're obviously what I would call an enlightened DBA.
Damn, that's recorded, right?
Except for the
That's
Microsoft.
Put that on the business card now. Enlightened DBA. But convincing DBAs that really don't believe in this stuff. I mean, what would you from your perspective say?
CI. Start them on CI. Get the database and source control and do continuous integration. Don't talk continuous delivery. Don't talk continuous deployment. That'll freak them out.
And so that's just, as you said, create an empty database and just run your SQL to create the tables.
Or whatever command you use.
Yeah.
PL SQL.
That's it.
Yeah.
You just want an empty database. That's what you.
Step one. But yeah, start them there, because that's 1, cheap, 2, easy, And 3 gets their interest. Because they go, wait, hang on, it failed. Well, why did it fail? Oh, we made a change to the store procedure and we didn't validate it for. Oh, cool. Oh, I see what this is for. Right? And then you introduce another couple of tests, and suddenly CI is like really attractive, and they're going, wow, this is great. I love this. Let's do more of it. And you start going, by the way, we're generating T-SQL we could use for the QA deployment. Wait, what? I don't have to do the QA deployment by hand? Awesome. Sign me up. How do, please help me. Obi-Wan, you're my only hope, right? It's just, but get them on CI. That gets people going. That's what got me going. I mean, it was our dev. I mean, our dev team came up to me. This happened 10 years ago. 11. God, I'm getting old. 11 years ago, they came up and said, "We're going to do this thing called continuous integration." Awesome. What do you need? Right? Because I would just follow along. They're like, "We're going to do this thing called agile." Cool. What's that mean? It means we're going to change the database every 2 weeks. Cool. Let's see how that works. It didn't work, by the way. But it was just, I mean, I am a little bit abnormal. I support my development team. But I mean, when I talk to DBAs,
That's sad.
when I talk to DBAs, that's what I tell them. Is like, look, you guys got to support your dev team. It's the whole goal. What's our goal? Make money and go home. Right? I mean, that's my goal. Make money and go home. So how do I make money? Well, I keep the business up and running by making sure I've got an available database. And 2, I make sure that my dev team is getting code out the door as fast as possible, because that's going to make me more money. That's all it is. I just want to make money and go home.
I want that tattoo.
Quick question. So, have you heard of Flywheel framework? Flywheel?
Flywheel?
Flywheel.
Flyway framework? No, I've not seen that one. No.
Okay. No, we are using that for Oracle.
Okay.
So I just thought like you may have some comment on that.
No, I don't. Again, I like you said, Microsoft focused. I am very aware of the other tooling coming out, but that's not one I've messed with.
Comment I have like, so normally the application and database are completely integrated. So why do I have to test database separately? If my application breaks, that means it is all good. Means I know that the database is wrong.
True, but what if data changes that the application is not looking at? Meaning the application pulls the data back, yes, and it goes, yeah, everything's fine. Yeah, but is that a well-formed date? Well, I don't know. We didn't look at that. Did the address split successfully? Because we were splitting the address into 2 fields. Yeah, I don't know. We just made sure that we got data back, right? So it's a question of where does the test get written? If you write all of them, cool, man.
Not all of them.
That's awesome.
So,
but it's a question of like who did the work. Usually, who did the work should write the test in general.
So the way we are looking at it right now, let's say I have A.SQL, B.SQL, and
Right.
go to with this Flywheel framework. So it has this version like you are in version 100 or 101 or something.
Right.
So let's say the 101, we have a failure, some integration transaction failed.
Sure.
So we know that right now we have to roll back or we have to correct it. There is no rollback as you said.
Yeah.
It's always going forward.
Right.
So you put in a new
Good.
stored proc or you new A.SQL and
Right.
it goes forward. But my question was, like, why do you need to have separate test for database itself, which like we don't
Well,
have like that.
If you're testing an application, you're testing it at its latest state of the database, right? And that doesn't really test how you got to that state. So you could have migrations that fail getting you to that state, but all your application tests pass, right? But your migration scripts to get you from a previous state of your database to the latest state won't be tested, and boy, if a migration goes wrong on prod, then everything's not going to work.
Right.
Yeah, so for us, like what we are thinking is like anything which is very complicated, it is manual. But most of the normal stuff, like when you add a column, you change a stored proc, you
Right.
add a trigger, that should be part of CI/CD.
Yeah.
So, but it's fine.
My general thing is, I mean, and there's going to be situations where at least, just speaking for myself, I'm going to have to go in and write T-SQL. But I'm going to write T-SQL and then I'm putting it into this framework. I'm checking the source control. I'm making it part of the build process. There's any number of ways you can do that. You can. Oh, we were going to check one thing too. Hang on one second. I had this up because I was gonna start building I wanna build a different, I've got an idea for a totally different deployment I wanna try to put together and test it out. But this is what it can do: deploy NuGet packages, run PowerShell scripts, send an email, whatever. Pause the process for manual intervention. This always excites DBAs, I don't know why. Deploy to Windows, Azure, or upload files to FTP. And you're right, so it is pretty Microsoft specific. Apologies. But it's open source.
No, it is good.
What was I going to say? Because I can run a PowerShell script, I can set up to run these things. I can set up what I usually put in was I talked about the pre-prod for the pre-deployment script for security, but I would also put in a folder for manual intervention scripts, and I would put a step in to grab the manual intervention scripts to run those individually. So again, I can put everything into source control, I can automate the whole process. I may be generating those by hand, but I don't have to run them by hand across the environments.
No,
I automate that process.
We have everything in source code, but the other comment I have, like cleaning the data is a difficult problem by itself.
Yeah, that's a totally different issue.
It's a very
I don't talk about that here because that's not addressing the deployment. That's much more of a management issue.
So would you recommend this process for both your transactional database and your like data warehouse
Sure, thank you.
type?
Absolutely. Thank you. That's cool. Yeah, why not? Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. I mean, the issues that I've run into is like when I get teams that are like, in Hibernate, entity framework focused, and like everything has to go through in Hibernate. Everything has to go through Entity Framework. And then in Hibernate, Entity Framework can't actually do 1.1 database deployments all that well. And I go, hey guys, we've got to write some scripts to do the things you want to do. And they're like, yeah, no, we don't never write scripts. Everything's good for you. You can't get to the production that way. And so we hit issues there. But most everybody else, I've done this with data warehouses. I've done this with OLTP systems. I haven't tried it with any fancy in-memory stuff yet, but I don't see why we couldn't do it there too. Except for the fact you have to drop everything and recreate it, which makes it actually easier.
I'm just curious if you've used this with any, so my background is more systems and operations. And
Sure.
so we do DevOps, that's what my company does.
Right.
And, we try to get other people to do DevOps.
Good luck.
Yeah. So I'm curious if you've used this in an environment where the systems are being managed in a similar way, where you've got deployment of, because it's not unlike, you're basically trying to capture the state of the environment as a whole, but at a database level. And so I'm wondering if you've done this in an environment where they're trying to do the same thing at the system level, possibly even at the same time.
Yes. Yeah, I have. And one, it makes it harder, but it's doable. It's just a question of coordinating the teams and coordinating the processes so that you've got a common practice across the teams. And it's, frankly, letting the dev teams drive. Again, my other presentation, I talk a lot about the dev teams. I absolutely believe developers have nailed this whole concept of team-driven mechanisms, of deployment mechanisms. That's what you guys have spent the last 30 years doing. We've spent the last 30 years doing high availability, data protection and all this other stuff. And we're good at it. You guys are good at what you do, we're good at what we do, but we've got to cross the streams. Well, I'm going to hook into what you guys are doing. I'm lazy. I'm really lazy. If you've built a good wheel, I want it. So you guys have built a good wheel around these processes, so I'm going to put them to use. And that's what we did with the SAN admin team came on board, the whole systems admin team came on board, and we followed the whole way through. We did a whole bunch of stuff with virtualization, so we could spin up virtual machines on the fly, so they were common, across the development environments. I mean, it's just that's how you do it. I mean, I am very data focused, but I've worked on large scale cross-disciplinary teams to do this stuff.
Do you find that makes it easier when you?
Yeah. The more people who are bought in, especially because once you've got all those guys on board, all their managers are on board too. And then it's really easy because everyone's saying, yeah, this is how we do things. Right? There's no more argument.
So since you do this with your development team, and it seems to me like the less relationship you have with all the database changes, the easier
easier it is for you, right? Do you find yourself pushing back to the development team saying that, hey, either separate your data calls or just make your database easier so everything becomes like a microservice type of design instead of
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I wouldn't say make your database easier. If anything, I like to make the databases more complex. Because I find that a serious design on the database, which is technically more complex, works better over time. Short term, easier is better, right? But long term,
I'm just talking about from like a table view instead of shoving everything into one gigantic view, just kind of separating everything else. Do you find yourself getting into discussions with your dev team and saying?
Yeah, absolutely I do. And as a matter of fact, I mean, like again, I've got the other presentation, we're kind of crossing over it in a little bit, but I absolutely think that the DBA should be on the scrums, right? I think the DBA should be there at the stand-up. I think that, I tell a story about, I inherited it's a joke that nobody's going to get. I inherited this thing that had multi-statement table value user-defined functions. No one knows what that is, I get it. That called multi-statement table value user-defined functions, that joined the multi-statement table value user-defined functions 86 layers deep inside a SQL Server. It's the most beautiful crystalline structure, object-oriented development process inside a SQL Server you've ever seen in your life. Beautiful. And it worked as long as they had one row in the database. As soon as they added 2 rows, it died. Now, I got this the day before it had to go to production. And I said, this is not going to work. We can't go to production with this, everything has to stop. And they're like, no, it's going to production. And I'm like, no, it won't work, we can't go to production. It's going to production. No, we can't do it. It went to production. The lesson I learned was, I can't stop deployments. But what I can do is stop development. If I'd been there 6 months earlier when they were doing it, and I wasn't, somebody else wasn't. But if I'd been there 6 months earlier when they started that process, I could have said, no, this is silly, you can't do this. And so my thing is not stopping deployments, because they can't be stopped. It's stop bad development. I stop it on day 1, then day 365 is easy. That's the approach I take. And believe me, it's a mixed bag. I've had horrible fights with development teams when I come in and go, no, this won't work. Yeah, it will. Yeah, have you tested it? Well, no. There's a reason I'm here.
What's your thought on, instead of having one huge database and breaking it apart into lots of different databases, and that way you can maybe have different teams focus on each database?
It depends. Another quick story. I walked into a company and they're like, they'd just come out of a development process where everything was siloed and nothing communicated. The teams didn't communicate, the data didn't communicate, the apps didn't communicate. It was all these little silos of data. Then they had to build a whole new set of apps on top of that to pull everything together so they could, and it was a nightmare. So they were doing a whole new development thing and they're like, can it all go in one database? Can it all go in one database? I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, it wasn't that big. We could all go in one database. That was the stupidest thing I ever said in my life. Because what we had was 7 different development teams all in one database with 7 different development streams, 7 different release cycles, and what a nightmare. And it was the biggest screw up I ever did. Should they have had 7 different databases? Yes. They probably should have about 9 different databases. But yes, they should have been split up because they really were separate development streams. And if you've got that situation, yeah, it should be split up. I agree. But it does get into a dance. Well, we've got 3 different development teams. Okay, 3 different databases. Well, maybe, right? It depends on the situation. But yeah, there's plenty of good reasons for that. And separating it by schema, no, that didn't work. We tried it. And there's all kinds of fun stuff that we tried to make it work better, and it all failed. Yeah.
How different does this look if you're using like a large NoSQL database?
How different does this look if you're using large?
This process, is it pretty much the same? Is it, are some steps easier or harder? Or?
Yes. It's easier in that if you're doing unstructured data,
like a MongoDB or something like that, or
right? But okay, but like a Hadoop, it's easier because you're not
or something like that.
Well, because you don't care what the structure is, right? It's an ID value pair. Go, right? However, as soon as you put structure in place, some structure, regardless of the structure, then the rules change, because you've got to protect that structure, you have to protect the data inside that structure. And so, yeah, the rough process, some of the details radically different, but the rough process, yeah, it's still gonna be the same.
I'm sure the tools will be different.
Oh, yeah.
Integration.
Yeah, the tooling, yeah, that goes without saying. But yeah, the rough process is gonna be identical.
Well, Grant, thank you
Cool,
so much
thanks.
for coming tonight.